fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The first time the goddess touched me, it wasn't a blessing. It was molten fire, a searing brand that licked my skin and left my throat tasting ash. Heat surged from my palm, liquid gold flooding my veins, and for a heartbeat I feared I would be consumed. Rain hammered Valenties, turning cobblestones into slick, shadowed cages. Lanterns sputtered behind a veil of water, their amber glow bleeding into orange ribbons that fell like tears from the sky. I huddled beneath a broken awning, the rotting wood creaking beneath me, watching the storm swallow the streets. My coin purse had slipped from a pickpocket's greedy fingers, my hope evaporated with the last sunrise, and even the will to greet another dawn had fled. Desperation sat heavy in my chest, a hollow ache that throbbed with each drop that struck the stone. I pulled a battered dice cup from my satchel, the wood cracked and splintered from years of use. My fingers trembled as I shook the dice, the soft clatter echoing against the metal. The goddess's fire still pulsed beneath my skin, a low hum that made the dice tremble in my hand. I rolled 7, again not luck, possession. The numbers burned into my vision, a constant reminder of the power thrumming beneath me, tingling in my fingertips and settling low in my belly like a restless animal. From the shadows emerged Kale, his armor glinting like a promise of steel. The rain slicked his dark helm, but his eyes, storm gray and unyielding, locked onto mine. He stepped forward, each footfall a muted thud against the wet stone, and his breath brushed my ear, hot and demanding. "You've been marked, little gambler," he whispered, his voice a low growl that seemed to vibrate the very air. His hand slid to the small of my back, the steel of his sword tracing a cold line down my spine. The chill of his blade met the heat of the goddess within me, sparking a fire I could not deny. His fingers lingered, fingertips grazing the curve of my hip, sending a shiver of electric longing through my core. Across the chamber, Lysander stepped forward, his robes swirling with arcane sigils that shimmered like moonlit water. The violet aura that clung to him pulsed in time with my heartbeat, each beat a soft echo of his power. He raised a hand, and a ribbon of violet magic coiled around my wrist, a silky caress that made my pulse race. "Surrender," he murmured, voice velvet and dangerous, "and feel the pleasure that only a god can grant." His hand slipped under my shirt, warm skin meeting the lingering chill of Kale's steel, and the goddess fire flared, igniting every nerve. I stood between two deities, their desires tangled with my own. Kale's grip tightened, his thumb tracing the line of my collarbone, his eyes dark with possessive fire. Lysander's magic pulsed, a violet tide that brushed my thighs, promising ecstasy beyond mortal reach. My breath came in ragged gasps, heart hammering against my ribs as I tasted the metallic tang of steel and the sweet, intoxicating scent of arcane incense. "Which god will break me first?" I whispered, voice trembling with both fear and yearning. The storm outside roared, but inside the chamber, time slowed. I felt the goddess's fire surge, mingling with Kale's cold steel and Lysander's violet heat, a triad of power that threatened to consume me entirely. In that moment I chose not to beg nor surrender, but to claim the fire for myself, letting the goddess's flame blaze through my veins, the steel's chill sharpen my resolve, and the violet magic awaken a longing that was wholly my own. The chamber erupted in a cascade of light and sound, and I stepped forward, ready to own the gods that coveted me. The rain had not yet ceased when I found myself standing in the heart of the temple's inner sanctum, the stone floor slick with a thin film of water that reflected the flickering torches like a sea of molten gold. My skin still smoldered where the goddess's fire had kissed me, a lingering heat that made the air around me shimmer. I could feel the echo of Kale's steel against my spine, a cold line that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my own heartbeat. Lysander hovered a step behind me, his violet aura pulsing like a living thing. He lifted his hand, and a soft wind of magic brushed my cheek, cool and fragrant with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. "You have awakened something ancient," he said, his voice a low chant that resonated in the vaulted ceiling. "The goddess does not choose the unworthy." I swallowed, feeling the ash taste of the goddess's fire still clinging to my tongue. "I am not worthy," I whispered, "but I am alive, and I will not be a pawn." Kale stepped forward, his armor now glistening with rain, each plate catching the torchlight and throwing it back in shards of silver. He knelt, his visor lifted, revealing a face scarred by battles I could only imagine. "You have a fire that could melt kingdoms," he said, his tone softer than I expected. "But fire alone can also burn the one who wields it." His hand slipped from my back and rested on my shoulder, the steel of his gauntlet warm where it met my skin. The contrast of his cold metal and the goddess's heat made my breath catch. I could feel the power thrumming beneath my skin, a current that seemed to bind us all together. Lysander's violet magic curled around my wrist, forming a delicate lattice of light. "Allow me to guide you," he whispered, and the lattice tightened, sending a gentle pulse through my veins. The sensation was like 1,000 tiny stars igniting within me, each one a promise of something greater. I closed my eyes, letting the storm outside become a distant drum, the rain a steady rhythm against the stone. In the darkness behind my lids I saw the goddess, her form a cascade of fire, eyes like molten amber, hands outstretched. She did not speak, but her presence was a roar, a promise that I could become more than a streetwise gambler, more than a survivor. When I opened my eyes, Kale was still there, his gaze unwavering. "Will you let us shape you?" he asked, his voice a blend of challenge and invitation. Lysander's violet aura brightened, the sigils on his robes flaring like distant constellations. "Or will you let the world decide your fate?" I felt the goddess's fire flare brighter, a surge that made my hair stand on end. "I will decide," I said, my voice steadier now, the ash in my throat turning to resolve. "I will take the fire, the steel, the violet, and forge my own path." Kale smiled, a thin line that revealed a set of teeth as sharp as his sword. "Then we shall begin." He drew his sword, the blade humming with a low, resonant tone as if it were alive. The metal sang against the stone, a song of war and honor. He placed the tip of the blade against my palm, the cold searing into my flesh. The goddess's fire surged, meeting the steel's chill, and for a heartbeat I thought I would be torn apart. But instead the two forces intertwined, a dance of heat and cold that wrapped around my arm like a living thing. I felt the fire melt into the steel become a conduit for the flame, and my own blood turned to liquid gold, pulsing with power. Lysander raised his hands, violet sigils spiraling outward, forming a circle of light that encompassed us. The magic seeped into my skin, a cool tide that washed over the fire-steel fusion, tempering it, shaping it. I could feel my senses sharpening, every sound amplified, every scent intensified. The rain outside became a symphony, each drop a note in a grand composition. "Now," Lysander said, "you must claim the name that will bind these gifts." I thought of the streets I had run, the alleys where I had hidden, the faces of those who had taken everything. I thought of the goddess, of Kale's steel, of the violet magic that now sang in my veins. I inhaled deeply, feeling the storm's breath fill my lungs, and I spoke the name that rose from the depths of my soul. "Astrea," I whispered, the word tasting like honey and iron. The moment the syllable left my lips, the goddess's fire flared brighter than ever, a pillar of light that shot up through the vaulted ceiling, cracking the stone and sending shards of crystal rain down like diamonds. Kale's sword sang, its blade now a conduit of pure, white light, and Lysander's violet magic exploded into a cascade of stars that rained across the chamber. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, as the light faded, I stood alone in the center of the sanctum, the rain still falling, the torches still sputtering, but something within me had changed. My eyes glowed with a faint amber hue, my skin bore the faint imprint of a silver sigil on my forearm, and a violet tattoo spiraled up my wrist, pulsing with each heartbeat. Kale approached, his armor now less a shield and more a second skin. He knelt before me not as a conqueror, but as a guardian. "You have taken the fire, the steel, the violet," he said, reverence in his tone. "You are no longer a pawn, you are a queen of your own destiny." Lysander bowed his head, his violet aura dimming to a gentle glow. "The goddess has chosen you, Astra, Astra," he trailed off, his eyes reflecting the storm outside. "You are the bridge between mortal and divine." I felt the goddess's presence settle over me, a warm embrace that was both comforting and demanding. "I will not be a bridge that others cross," I said, my voice firm. "I will be the path itself." The rain intensified, drumming a fierce rhythm on the stone, as if the heavens themselves were applauding. I lifted my hands, feeling the fire dance along my fingertips, the steel humming beneath my skin, the violet magic swirling like a living river. With a single breath, I released a pulse of energy that surged outward, lighting the entire temple in a blaze of amber, silver, and violet. The storm outside seemed to pause, the thunder holding its breath, before a single crack of lightning split the sky, striking the temple's highest spire. The bolt illuminated the city of Velantes, its streets glistening like a river of molten glass. From the highest tower, a figure watched, an ancient seer, eyes closed, lips moving in a silent prayer. I turned to Kale and Lysander, gratitude and resolve shining in my eyes. "We have a world to reshape," I said, the words ringing like a promise. Kale unsheathed his sword, the blade now a silver flame, and offered it to me. "Take it, Astrea, wield it as you will." Lysander extended his hand, the violet sigil on my wrist glowing brighter. "And let my magic be your guide." I accepted both gifts, feeling the weight of destiny settle upon my shoulders. The goddess's fire surged, the steel's chill steadied, and the violet magic sang. Together they formed a triad of power that pulsed in time with my heart. The storm finally began to wane, the rain turning to a gentle mist that clung to the stone like a lover's sigh. The lanterns steadied, their amber glow no longer trembling but steady, casting a warm light over the sanctum. I stepped out of the temple, the streets of Velantes glistening under the waning storm. The city, once a maze of shadows and desperation, now seemed alive with possibility. People emerged from their homes, eyes wide with awe as they beheld the figure standing at the crossroads, a woman with fire in her veins, steel in her bones, and violet magic swirling around her like a halo. I raised my hand, feeling the goddess's fire flare, and whispered a promise to the heavens. "I will not be a pawn of the gods, I will be the storm that reshapes the world." The rain lifted, the clouds parting to reveal a sky painted with the colors of dawn. In that moment I knew the path ahead would be fraught with battles, betrayals, and impossible choices. But I also knew that I held within me the power of 3 divine forces, and that I would forge my own destiny, one step, one breath, one heartbeat at a time. And so, with the storm behind me and the sunrise before me, I walked forward, the city of Velantes awakening to a new era, an era ruled not by gods, but by a woman who dared to claim the fire, the steel, and the violet, and make them her own.